Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you are hungry for more in your life? Say aye. Crowd responds, aye. How many of you know there's a version of you that's unstoppable, but you've been letting the old version keep running the show? Pause, step forward, lower voice for impact. Today I'm going to give you 3 simple rules that I live by, rules that I failed for, but they didn't just change my life, they rebuilt it. Let me ask you something, what do you tolerate in your life? Because whatever you tolerate, you invite. I was broke. Emotionally, financially, spiritually, my relationships were toxic, my body was tired, and I kept saying, someday I'll change. But guess what? Someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the graveyard. One day I made a decision. I said enough, and that moment changed everything. Not because life changed, but because I changed what I would no longer tolerate. I raised my standards. Not I like to lose weight. No, I must be strong. Not I want success. No, I will serve and grow until success chases me. There's a moment in every person's life where they wake up and say, I can't live like this anymore. That moment is powerful not because everything changes instantly, but because the decision to demand more from yourself is the first domino. It's the turning point. That's what it means to raise your standards. And until you do that, nothing, no strategy, no book, no motivational video will ever stick. Standards are not goals. Goals are things we want. Standards are what we accept. But most people confuse the two. They say, I want to be healthy, but their standard is fast food 3 times a week. They say, I want a loving relationship, but they tolerate disrespect. They want wealth, but settle for a job they hate and a paycheck that keeps them stuck. Until your standards catch up with your desires, your life won't rise, it'll circle. Let's bring this into real life. Imagine a thermostat. A thermostat is set at a certain temperature, say 72 degrees. The moment the room gets hotter or colder than that, the thermostat kicks in to bring it back to 72. That's what your standards do. If your standard is just getting by, and suddenly you start making more money, that internal thermostat, your habits, your identity pulls you back to mediocrity. You sabotage yourself, you overspend, you procrastinate, because your identity hasn't changed. Your standards haven't changed. But what happens when someone decides, I will no longer live below this level? Everything shifts. That's when a single mom decides her kids deserve better and she goes back to school, works nights, and builds a life no one thought possible. That's when a man who's been unhealthy for years finally looks in the mirror and says no more and say, Art's waking up early, eating clean, lifting weights. Not because someone told him to. Because his standards changed. Years ago, I met a young man who worked as a janitor. He was barely making enough to survive. One day he heard someone say, the life you're living today is the one you're settling for. It hit him like a lightning bolt. That night, he wrote a new standard on a piece of paper and stuck it to his fridge. It said, I work for myself. I make $100,000 a year. I wake up at 5 a.m. Now, at the time, none of that was real, but it became his new standard. Within 18 months, he quit his job, started a small service business, and broke through $100,000. Why? Because he stopped tolerating the old version of himself. Every breakthrough starts with a decision. A moment when you draw a line in the sand and say, I will no longer tolerate this in my life. It's the moment you go from being a passenger to driver. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed to better every single day. Look around you. What are the standards you've been living by in your health, your relationships, your finances, your energy? If you're brutally honest, most people will find their standards are stuck in survival mode. Just enough to avoid pain, but not enough to build the life they dream about. You're not here to survive. You're here to lead. You're here to build. You're here to inspire. But you can't do that running on low expectations. I think about Olympic athletes. They don't train like normal people. They don't eat like everyone else. They don't talk like everyone else. Why? Because their standards are elite. Their rituals, their mindset, their preparation, all of it is calibrated to their identity. They don't hope to win. They prepare to win. They expect excellence. That's the key. You have to raise your standards so high that your actions naturally follow. And it doesn't have to be dramatic at first. Raising your standards might start with making your bed every morning even if nobody sees it. It might mean putting your phone in another room while you work. It might be setting a rule, no more toxic conversations after 9 p.m. These seem small, but over time they compound. And they speak to something deeper, your sense of self-worth. Because when you raise your standards, what you're really saying is, I matter, my life matters. My time matters. Here's the truth. Everyone gets their musts, not their shoulds. If you say, I should get in shape, you won't. But if you say, I must be fit, you will find a way. Your standards create your actions create your results. And your results reinforce your identity. So today, decide to raise your standards not just in one area, but in every area. Stop waiting for permission. You don't need a better boss, a better economy, a better childhood, or even a better opportunity. You need a better standard. Decide what you will no longer tolerate and then act like it's already true. Speak like it, walk like it, make decisions like the version of you that already lives that life. That's when the shift begins. Not tomorrow, not next month, but today, right now. Because once you raise your standards, the world has no choice but to rise to meet you. Fear is the silent killer. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't kick down the door. It slowly closes in on your potential, one excuse at a time. Fear doesn't have to shout stop. It just needs to get you to hesitate. And in that hesitation, dreams die quietly. People think fear shows up like a monster in the dark. No. Fear shows up in subtle ways. It sounds like, what if I fail? What will people think? I'm not ready. I'll start tomorrow. Fear wears 1,000 disguises, and it always pretends to protect you. But let's be honest, fear isn't keeping you safe. It's keeping you small. You aren't born scared. Watch a toddler. They fall. They get up. They try again. They reach for things they shouldn't. They explore. They test limits. Why? Because fear hasn't been conditioned into them yet. But somewhere along the line, life teaches us fear. We get laughed at in class and we stop raising our hand. We get rejected once and we stop trying. We fail at something and we make it mean we are a failure. And that's the lie. Failure is an event. It's feedback. It's a part of growth, not a definition of who you are. I remember a man who told me, I've always wanted to start a business, but I'm afraid I'll lose everything. I asked him, how long have you been saying that? He paused. 10 years. 10 years of dreams locked in a cage built by fear. 10 years of watching others live the life you wanted. 10 years of being more committed to comfort than to courage. That's what fear does. It steals time. And the cruel thing about fear is it often waits until it's too late. One day you wake up and realize you didn't just lose opportunities, you lost yourself. But here's the truth, you don't get rid of fear. You learn to move through it. The bravest people you know aren't fearless, they're just unwilling to let fear drive. They've built the muscle of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision that something else matters more. Let me tell you a story from daily life. There was a young woman who had a dream of becoming a speaker. But every time she thought about standing in front of people, her heart would race, her palms would sweat, and her inner voice would scream, "Who you are?" So she avoided it. She convinced herself she wasn't ready. She told herself she'd try when she was more confident. One day, her company asked her to give a short talk at an event. It wasn't optional. She had a choice, run or rise. She was terrified, but she prepared. She practiced. She showed up. Her voice shook. Her hands trembled. But she did it. And after it was over, something clicked. She realized fear didn't kill her. In fact, it made her feel more alive than she'd ever felt. Today, she's a professional keynote speaker, inspiring thousands. Why? Because she chose to move through fear instead of around it. That's the secret. Fear only grows in avoidance. The more you run from it, the more power it has. But the moment you face it, even if you shake, even if you cry, even if you stumble, you begin to shrink its hold. You begin to remember that fear is just a feeling. It's not a fact. And feelings are temporary. Regret, on the other hand, that can last a lifetime. You want to kill fear? Get in the habit of doing the thing you're afraid of just a little bit every day. Scared to post your ideas online? Post anyway. Scared to apply for the job? Apply anyway. Scared to tell someone you love them? Say it anyway. That's how confidence is built. Not from reading, but from doing. You see, there are two types of pain in life, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Fear will convince you that avoidance is peace, but it's lying. Avoidance is a slow suffocation of your potential. Fear will try to make you forget how powerful you are. It will try to tame you. But you weren't born to live a caged life. You were born to roar, to stretch, to chase the fire in your soul. People will always tell you to be realistic. But being realistic is just a polite way of saying be afraid like me. Realists didn't build the light bulb. Realists didn't invent the airplane. Realists didn't create revolutions. Dreamers did, believers did. The scared people who backed it anyway, they're ones who changed the world. Your dream doesn't need perfection, it needs permission to take one shaky step, and another, and another. Until one day you look back and realize you were never supposed to kill fear, you were supposed to outgrow it. So today, take a moment and ask yourself, where is fear running the show in my life? Is it in your relationships, your career, your creativity? And what would your life look like if you stopped negotiating with it? Because at the end of your life, it won't be the risks you took that haunt you. It'll be the ones you didn't. It won't be the times you failed. It'll be the times you never tried. Kill the fear before it kills the dream. Not later. Not next year. There's a trap most people fall into, and it sounds like this: I'll start when I'm ready. But here's the truth that transformed my life and can transform yours too. You will never feel ready. Not for the big things, not for the life-changing decisions, not for the bold moves. Waiting for readiness is just another form of procrastination wearing the mask of perfection. Success doesn't come to those who plan forever, it comes to those who act, even when it's messy. Especially when it's messy. That's what massive imperfect action means. It's saying, I may not know everything. I may not have all the answers, but I'm moving forward anyway because momentum beats perfection every single time. Let's be real, how many dreams have died in the prison of overthinking? How many people have brilliant ideas, world-changing visions, beautiful plans, and yet nothing to show for it? Not because they didn't care, not because they weren't capable, but because they were waiting to get it right before they even got started. I think about a child learning to walk. They don't wait until they figure out balance, posture, timing, and foot placement. They wobble, they fall, they hit their heads, but they get up again and again and again. They take imperfect action, and that's how they grow. That's how all growth happens. Let me share a real-world example. A friend of mine wanted to start a podcast. He had the idea. He had the passion. He even had the name picked out, but he kept saying, I need better gear. I need to figure out editing. I need to practice more. Months went by, then a year. Still no podcast. One day I said, you know what? Record your first episode with your phone. No intro music. No script. Just talk. He resisted. He was nervous. He thought it wouldn't be good enough. But eventually he did it. That first episode, it was raw, it was imperfect, but it was real. And that was the beginning. Fast forward 1 year, his podcast now has thousands of listeners. All because he stopped waiting and started doing. Here's what most people forget. The first version of anything is supposed to be ugly. Your first video, your first business pitch, your first workout, your first article. They're not meant to be perfect, they're meant to get you moving. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. And when you take massive action, not timid steps, but bold, committed movement, you send a message to yourself and the world, I'm serious. You build confidence by doing. You build certainty through motion. You become ready by becoming involved. Massive imperfect action is how every success story begins. Apple started in a garage. Amazon sold only books. Netflix mailed DVDs. None of them looked like giants in the beginning. They looked like experiments, rough drafts, but they moved fast. That they tried, they tested. They failed forward. That's the game. People often ask, but what if I fail? My answer, good. That means you're doing something real. You're growing. You're learning. Failure isn't the enemy, inaction is. The person who fails 100 times is still further ahead than the person who never starts. Now apply this to your own life. Maybe you've been wanting to launch a business, write a book, change your career, improve your relationship, start your fitness journey, and you've been thinking about it, researching, planning, talking to friends about it, but you haven't moved. Why? Probably because you're waiting to feel more prepared. Let me lovingly tell you, stop waiting. You don't need a perfect plan, you need a powerful decision followed by immediate action. And it doesn't mean you have to quit your job tomorrow or run a marathon next week. Massive action doesn't always mean dramatic, it means intentional and committed. It means doing more than you're comfortable with. It means being willing to look foolish for the sake of your future. It means taking steps that scare you and doing it anyway. Here's something powerful to remember. No one who ever accomplished something great looked polished at the start. Every master was once a beginner. Every success story was once a mess in motion. And every overnight success was years of messy, imperfect, consistent action behind the scenes. Take a look at your life right now. What's something you've been putting off? What's something that would move you closer to your dream if you just did it today? Maybe it's sending that email, making that call, recording that video, asking for help, taking that first step. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for perfect timing. Just move. Because once you do, you start building the muscle of action. And the more you take action, the less scary it becomes. Action is the cure to fear. It's the antidote to doubt. It's the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Take massive, imperfect action, not tomorrow, not next month, today. Because life rewards the bold. And your future self is already waiting for you to show up. Pain, it's something we all try to avoid. We're taught from a young age that pain is bad, that if it hurts, we should run from it, numb it, hide it, ignore it. But here's the truth most people never realize. Pain isn't your enemy, it's your messenger. It's not a life sentence. It's a signal. And if you learn to listen to it, not fear it, you'll find that pain can become one of the greatest forces for transformation in your life. Think about your physical body. If you touch a hot stove, pain doesn't mean your life is over. It just means, hey, this is damaging you, pull back. That pain is there to protect you, to guide you, to force you to pay attention. Emotional pain works the same way. If you're constantly exhausted, anxious, frustrated, if you dread going to work, if your relationships feel draining, those aren't draining, they're signals. They're your life's way of whispering something needs to change. But what do most people do? They silence the signal. They scroll. They binge. They drink. They sleep it off. They say it's not that bad. And what happens? The pain grows. Because when you ignore the signal long enough, it becomes a scream. Then one day the job becomes unbearable. The relationship breaks. The body collapses. The dream fades. Not because you were weak, but because you didn't listen early enough. I know this because I lived it. There was a time in my life where I was running at full speed, chasing success, chasing approval, chasing perfection. On the outside, everything looked great, but on the inside, I was breaking down. I was tired, angry, short-tempered. I didn't feel alive. I felt robotic. But I kept going, telling myself this is just a hustle. This is what it takes. Until one day I hit a wall mentally, emotionally, and physically. I burned out. And it wasn't some dramatic collapse. It was quiet, lonely. It was a slow disconnection from who I really was. That pain was terrifying at the time. But looking back, it was the greatest gift I ever received. It forced me to stop, to recess, to ask hard questions. Why am I really doing all this? What am I trying to prove? What do I really want? That season of pain rewired my life, not because the pain went away instantly, but because I stopped treating it like a punishment and started treating it like a wake-up call. And this applies to every area of life. Let's take relationships. If every conversation with someone leaves you feeling small, anxious, or confused, that's not just drama. That's a signal. That's your inner wisdom telling you this dynamic is not healthy. But people stay. They hope it'll change. They cling to memories of better times. And they ignore the growing ache in their gut that says this is not love. This is fear dressed as loyalty. Or think about finances, living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in stress, feeling behind on your dreams. The pain isn't just bad luck. It's feedback. It's life saying you're meant for more, but your current strategy isn't working. That's not shame. That's an invitation to level up. The difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck is not who feels pain, it's what they do with it. The strongest, most inspiring people you'll ever meet are not the ones who had perfect lives. They're the ones who face deep pain and use it to rise. They turn heartbreak into hunger, loss into leadership, struggle into strength. Because they understood this truth. Pain is not here to stop you. It's here to shape you. Let's bring it to a simple daily life example. Think of going to the gym. You lift weights, you push yourself, your muscles ache. That pain, it's not damage, it's growth. Your body is literally tearing down old limits to rebuild something stronger. But if you run from that pain, if you stop the moment it burns, you never get stronger. Life works the same way. The pain of growth is temporary. The pain of regret, that lasts forever. So the next time you feel discomfort, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, pause. Don't reach for the nearest distraction. Ask yourself, what is this trying to tell me? Maybe it's telling you that your values and your actions are out of alignment. Maybe it's telling you that your heart wants more than your habits are giving it. Maybe it's reminding you that you've stayed quiet for too long. The most powerful shift you can make is to stop seeing pain as something to avoid and start seeing it as something to explore. Not every pain is a problem. Sometimes it's a compass. It's pointing you toward the place you've been avoiding. And that place, that's where your next breakthrough lies. So don't silence the signal. Don't numb the discomfort. Don't shrink in the face of the ache. Feel it, listen to it. Let it guide you. Because when you understand that pain is not the end of the story, but the beginning of something greater, you stop running and you start growing. Who you spend time with will either raise your life or drain it. It's that simple. You can have the most brilliant ideas, the deepest drive, the boldest vision, but if you're surrounded by people who don't believe in growth, don't believe in you, or don't believe in themselves, it will slowly start to wear on your spirit. Your energy, your standards, your habits, they are contagious. And the people closest to you are the ones you catch them from. Proximity is power. That means the people you're close to are shaping your future every single day, whether you realize it or not. They influence what you believe is possible. They influence how you think, how you speak, how you act, how you dream. You want to know who you're becoming? Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's your mirror. That's your momentum or your anchor. We like to believe we're independent thinkers. And in many ways we are, but we're also emotional creatures. We adapt. We pick up the energy of the room. You felt it. You walk into a space with driven, positive people, suddenly you feel alive, all fired up. But walk into a room full of complainers, doubters, victims, and you feel drained, uninspired, heavy. That's not coincidence. That's proximity. Let me give you a real example. A young man I once coached was full of ideas. Brilliant mind. Huge heart. But he was stuck. Every time he made a little progress, he'd fall back. He'd doubt himself, procrastinate, play small. I asked him about the people around him. He said, well, my friends don't really get what I'm trying to do. They say I'm dreaming too big. My family tells me to just be safe. Everyone's kind of just coasting. Bingo. His environment was pulling him down to its level, not because they were bad people, but because they were stuck in their own stories. And he was absorbing those limitations. We made one powerful shift change the room. He started attending local entrepreneur meetups. He found a mentor. He listened to new voices, people who were making moves, not excuses. And within months, his mindset transformed. He didn't just work harder, he worked smarter, bolder, clearer. Why? Because he got around people who made him level up. Now, this doesn't mean you cut everyone out of your life. It means you become intentional. You stop leaving your environment to chance. You start asking, does this person inspire me or drain me? Do they challenge me or comfort me into complacency? And if the answer keeps pulling you down, you don't have to make a dramatic exit. But you do need to create space for new energy. Think of it like this. If you're trying to get in shape and you spend every day with people who eat junk food, skip the gym, and mock your efforts, how long do you think you'll stay committed? Now flip it. If your inner circle is made up of people who train hard, eat well, and celebrate discipline, you'll rise without even trying as hard. Because the standard of the room becomes your new baseline. Here's another real-life example. A woman I worked with had a dream of starting her own wellness business. But she was surrounded by people who saw business as risky and unrealistic. Every time she brought up her idea, they laughed or brushed it off. She stayed small for years until she joined a mastermind group full of passionate entrepreneurs. For the first time, she was in a room where people said, you can do this, here's how. Let's go. That energy changed everything. Her confidence soared. She launched her brand. And she started making real money doing what she loved, not because her idea suddenly got better, but because her circle started reflecting her belief, not her doubt. That's the power of proximity. It's the power of being around people who live at the level of it's a rise to. People whose conversations spark ideas instead of excuses. People whose lifestyle forces you to expand, not shrink. People who don't just cheer for your comfort, they push you toward your calling. And this applies to everything: your health, your finances, your emotional well-being. Surround yourself with disciplined people and watch how your habits tighten. Hang out with high performers and see how your own standards shift. Spend time with people who speak possibility, and suddenly your limitations stop making sense. So take a moment and really ask yourself, who's in my inner circle? Not just who you see at work or family dinners, but who are you actually listening to? Who are you texting, calling, spending hours with? Who are you letting shape your mindset? If the answer doesn't inspire you, it's time to upgrade the room. It doesn't mean you're better than anyone. It means your future matters too much to gamble it on average energy. You need to be around people who fan your flame, not stomp it out. People who look at your big dreams and say, why not you? Instead of that's too much. Remember, you're not just building a life, you're building a legacy. And the people you walk with today will influence where that legacy leads. Choose wisely. Because proximity isn't just power, it's your future, unfolding one relationship at a time. We all carry a story, a collection of moments, memories, successes, failures, heartbreaks, and victories that make us who we are. Some people try to hide their story, ashamed of their past or the mistakes they've made. Others believe their story is a weakness, a burden that holds them back. But what if I told you that your story is not your chain, but your greatest source of power? Your story is unique. No one else has lived your exact journey. The struggles you've endured, the battles you've fought, and the lessons you've learned are treasures waiting to be unlocked. When you own your story, when you stop pretending it doesn't exist or wishing it was different, you turn your pain into purpose, your scars into stars. Think about this. The most inspiring leaders, the most motivational speakers, the people who move crowds and change lives, they don't stand on stage with perfect lives. They stand there with real stories, stories of setbacks, losses, and failures, stories that resonate because they remind us we're not alone. They remind us that growth is messy but possible. I want to share a simple truth with you. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with authenticity, with raw, real human experience. When you share your story, you give others permission to face their own. You create a bridge that says, I've been there. I've struggled. I've fallen. But I got back up, and so can you. I remember a woman I met who had been through tremendous challenges, loss of loved ones, financial hardship, even health struggles. She used to avoid talking about her past because she was afraid of judgment. But when she finally decided to share her story at a local event, something incredible happened. People listened, tears were shed, and a powerful connection was formed. She wasn't just telling her story, she was lighting a fire in others who were fighting similar battles in silence. Her vulnerability became their strength. Your story is your strength because it shows resilience. It proves that you've survived storms others haven't. And every time you tell your story with courage, you reclaim your power. You refuse to be defined by your pain or your past. You transform your experiences into a message of hope. Now think about your own life. What moments have shaped you? What obstacles have you overcome? What lessons have those challenges taught you? These aren't just memories, they're building blocks of your character. And your character is the foundation of your success. Sometimes we're tempted to believe that our story is a liability. That if people knew the real us, they wouldn't believe in our potential, but the opposite is true. Your story builds trust. It makes you relatable. It humanizes you in a world full of polished, curated images. When you own your story, you stand out because you're real. And here's the beauty of it. Your story is always evolving. It's not stuck in the past. Every day, every choice you make adds a new chapter. You are the author, the hero, and the narrator of your own life. You can decide whether your story is one of victimhood or victory, of excuses or excellence, of fear or faith. Let me tell you about a man who once thought his story was a setback. He had made mistakes that cost him relationships and opportunities. For years, he carried shame and regret, believing he had no future worth fighting for. But one day, he chose to write a new chapter. He started small, volunteering, learning new skills, reconnecting with loved ones. Slowly, his story shifted from one of loss to one of redemption. And as he embraced his past instead of running from it, he found a new purpose, helping others rewrite their stories too. Your story has that kind of power. It can inspire change not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you. When you share your journey, you become a beacon for those still lost in the darkness. When you show them that transformation is possible, that wounds can heal, that dreams can be reborn. So here's the challenge for you. Don't hide your story. Don't shrink it or sanitize it. Own it. Celebrate the battles and the breakthroughs. Use it as a tool to connect, to teach, to inspire. And remember, the world needs your story, not some perfect version, but the authentic you. Because at the end of the day, your story isn't just about what happened to you. It's about what you do with what happened. It's about the legacy you choose to leave. And when you stand tall in your truth, you become unstoppable. There's a magical word that separates those who dream from those who achieve, and that word is consistency. People often chase motivation. They wait for that perfect spark, the right mood, or the ideal moment to start. But motivation is fleeting. It's a firecracker, bright and explosive, but short-lived. Consistency, on the other hand, is a slow-burning flame that over time turns into an unstoppable blaze. Imagine this: you want to build muscle. You can't go to the gym once and expect to look like a champion the next day. But if you show up every day, even when you don't feel like it, your muscles begin to grow, your body adapts, and progress becomes inevitable. The same applies to learning a skill, building a business, or improving any area of your life. It's not the one-time giant effort that changes you, it's the repeated, small steps taken day after day. I remember a friend who wanted to write a book. At first, she told me she was going to write for hours every day, but soon reality hit. She got busy, distracted, and overwhelmed. But instead of giving up, she decided to commit to just 15 minutes every single day. Some days she wrote 200 words, some days only a sentence. A year later, she held a finished manuscript in her hands. That's the power of small, consistent action. Consistency builds momentum like a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's tiny and easy to stop. But as you keep going, that ball grows larger and larger, gaining speed, crushing obstacles in its path. Momentum fuels motivation. Once you start moving, it becomes easier to keep moving. Your habits strengthen, your confidence grows. Suddenly, what once felt hard and uncertain becomes natural and unstoppable. Think about your own routines. What habits have stuck with you because you did them repeatedly? Brushing your teeth, making your bed, driving to work. Those are small actions done daily without thinking. Now imagine applying that same principle to your goals. What if you showed up to your dreams every day with the same commitment you show to brushing your teeth? But consistency isn't just about quantity, it's about quality too. It means showing up with intention even on days when you're tired or distracted. It means honoring your promises to yourself. That's what builds trust, the trust that you are reliable, disciplined, and committed. And that trust becomes the foundation for every breakthrough you want to achieve. Here's a real-life example that inspired me deeply. A young athlete I knew dreamed of competing at the national level. He wasn't the most talented or the fastest. What set him apart was his consistency. Rain or shine, tired or energized, he showed up to practice every day. While others sought shortcuts or took breaks, he stayed steady. Over time, that daily grind transformed him. His skills sharpened. His endurance grew. And when the competition day arrived, he didn't just participate, he dominated. Consistency doesn't guarantee instant success. It guarantees progress. It builds layers of improvement that add up even when results feel invisible. That's why people give up too soon. They expect fireworks on day one, but life rewards those who play the long game. Now let's talk about how to harness this power. First, start small. Don't overwhelm yourself with massive goals that feel impossible. Instead, commit to just one action, writing one page, walking for 10 minutes, reaching out to one new contact. Small wins create momentum. They build your belief that you can do it. Second, create a routine. Make your actions automatic by attaching them to existing habits. Maybe you write right after your morning coffee or meditate before bed. When something becomes part of your daily rhythm, resistance drops and consistency grows. Third, embrace imperfection. Some days you'll do less, some days you'll stumble. That's okay. What matters is not perfection, it's persistence. Keep showing up. Every time you get back on track, you strengthen your resilience and commitment. Lastly, celebrate progress. Track your wins no matter how small. When you see the snowball growing, it fuels your fire. You realize that every single day counts. I want you to think about your dreams right now. What if, instead of waiting for motivation, you chose consistency? What if you decided today to take one small step and then the same step tomorrow and the next day? What would your life look like a year from now? Consistency is the secret that turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. It doesn't require genius or luck. It requires discipline and heart. When you commit to showing up, no matter what, you build unstoppable momentum. And momentum, my friend, changes everything.